Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Let's Talk News. Hopefully, you came to this channel because you know about us. But if you just happen to pop in, stay a little while and talk with me and our studio audience about what's going on in the world. And today has been a day. Um, so many things have happened, but the most interesting thing that's happened, in my opinion, is another link in the chain has been forged showing us where Democrat money is going, coming from, being washed, and being sent back out to. But before we talk about that, and that would be the Southern Poverty Law Center. Um, and you might have heard about what's going on with that. If not, we'll talk about it in a minute. But before we talk about that, last night we were watching the Virginia redistricting results. And sad to say that the no's lost, the yeses won. And by just a fraction, by about 14,000 votes, maybe a little bit more. That's the last I saw. So I thought, well, they could have a recount, but apparently that's not needed because apparently the lawsuits that ensued are getting some traction. I'll just let you hear what was going on today.
Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger celebrating the win in yesterday's redistricting vote, voters narrowly approving a new pro-Democrat congressional map in a controversial referendum that critics have slammed as a, quote, power grab. The outcome threatens the already very tight Republican House majority. Mark Meredith is live in Alexandria, Virginia with more on this. And Mark, that vote ended up pretty narrow.
Bill, it sure did a lot narrower than some people were expecting, and Virginia voters showed up in huge numbers to determine Tuesday's redistricting referendum. This morning, Democrats are celebrating the outcome, saying they're putting a check on President Trump's power, but Republicans say this is simply proof that Virginia has lost its way. More than 3 million people cast their ballot in what you said was a narrowly defined race. However, voters chose to give the legislature power to redraw congressional maps before November's midterms. The new map is expected to take Republicans down from 5 congressional districts to 1. We heard from the chair of the National Republican Congressional Committee, who wrote, Democrats can't redraw reality. This close margin reinforces that Virginia is a purple state that shouldn't be represented by a severe partisan gerrymander. Democrats say they felt emboldened to act after Republicans in Texas redistricted too. Governor Abigail Spanberger and former President Obama, they were the ones leading the effort in the Commonwealth. We heard from the former President Obama saying Republicans are trying to tilt the midterm elections in their favor, but they haven't done it yet. Thanks for showing us what it looks like to stand up for our democracy and fight back. So Tuesday's outcome means, yes, that Democrats have a better shot now at taking the House come November, but other states are still weighing whether to redraw their maps. As Politico points out, pressure is now growing on Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to make up for Democrats' gains with a GOP-led redistricting effort in his state as soon as next week. And while voters decided here in Virginia, there is another X factor in all this, Bill. The Virginia State Supreme Court is still deciding whether or not this will all be able to stand. There were multiple challenges to this redistricting referendum, including how the language on the ballot was written, and we are waiting to see what the court may decide next. Bill.
And depending on how they rule, all eyes will be on the state of Florida, as you mentioned.
So the circuit, one of the circuit courts actually stated that the redistricting was unconstitutional today. So that is going to set off a whole firestorm of different lawsuits and different challenges. So like in New York and in other places, the courts might make the decision here. But I wonder what you think. Do you think that we should just wipe the slate clean and agree that all the lines in every state go back to the way they were? Because this was not a census year. So the lines were not redrawn in a census year. And up until now, they were always drawn in census years. Um, and there are a whole host of reasons why Texas wanted to redraw now, but supposedly all of these Democrat states are answering Texas. But then you have Louisiana and some others that red states that and Florida that are talking about redrawing lines too. So I mean, do we wind up with a wash? Do we wind up who's getting served here is what I'm saying. It seems like the only people that aren't getting served are the people because Virginia, 3 million people came out to vote. That was enormous. That was as big as a gubernatorial election for a redistricting referendum. And it was so razor thin, the margin of victory for the redistricting. So now the all the lawyers are going to court. So who really wins? Because who pays for that? Because now who is going to defend and who's not going to defend? Is state legislature going to be buying time from lawyers to defend their redistricting, which means that the taxpayer pays it, and so on and so forth. So it feels to me like we're the people are taking it up the rear end. But anyway, let me say hello. Hi, Kevin, from the other side of the world, but the same side of the issues. Good to have you. Hi, Jeff, good to have you with us. Hi, Francine, thank you so much, all of you, for being faithful followers, listeners, watchers, contributors. I couldn't have sanity without you, that's for sure. Hi, our OG Lucille Chavone. Angela Rick on my right hand, good to have you. Santillian from Hawaii. Aloha, crazy Maisie got called out on her take on the student fraud funding COVID. Really? Wait, is that following curve? I don't know. I didn't see that. I mean, I will admit that I had a big project that I had to get done today. That took me literally all day. So I was away from the television, the computer, everything. I don't know much about what happened in the world. I saw Vermont politics in another channel stated a judge struck down the redistricting. Yes. So that was a circuit court judge. So it would have to go to state Supreme Court. Hello, Kevin Young. Good to have you. Karen, good to have you. Andrew Dorman, happy Wednesday to you. Without USID, Dems are done. Yes, I agree with that. But it's even more. I mean, it really is crazy what's going on. Hi, Susan. Okay, so Jeff agrees. Changing district vote can be vote rigging, and some is voting fairness. I think that the people leaving it in the hands of the legislature is a little rough. I think that these independent commissions, I liked those. Why they were tossed aside is beyond me. I'm sorry. Hi, how are you, Peter Romanowski? I saw our friends in the hospital. Maybe you want to share what that's about. I mean, he looks good. John Guzzo, everybody say a prayer for his speedy recovery. And yeah, is he getting a knee done? It looked like he was in New York. So let me know either in the private message or what. Okay, so it sounds like we agree that this redistricting stuff is nobody could win it. You know what I mean? Nobody could actually win it. But I have a big concern with the Democrats, what they're trying to do. They're trying to put themselves in power for all time and claiming that that's protecting democracy. They want to make Puerto Rico a state. They want to stack the Supreme Court. They want to allow illegal migrants the right to vote, or non-citizens the right to vote, because they presume that they will be able to stay in power forever if they do those things. And I can understand why they would presume that, because they seem to think that people individuals don't have free will. And that's possibly because we are not exercising our free will enough in this country. And a lot of Democrats do walk in lockstep. They are cultish. I mean, I'll go back to the union situation. People who are telling you we're going to protect you, give us money, we'll protect you. Just vote the way we tell you to. And time and time again, the Democrats have voted against working people and against union people, which just blows my mind. But the union people still vote Democrat. So they have been successful for many, many years, probably about 40 or 50, getting certain groups to vote with them all the time. But I do think that this redistricting stuff, I think this is a bad look for them because, and also what they're doing with Donald Trump with the TDS, I think that's a bad look for them. And I don't think that migrants from other countries agree with their stance on trans, for instance, and the taking your money after you work and giving it to people who don't want to work. I don't think that those people will necessarily vote their way. So it's interesting. Bionic Man. Okay, got it. They did a redistricting here in Hawaii 4 years ago. It backfired. Unfortunately, the Republican Party here didn't promote candidates, so more independents have filed. I love that. I like the idea, and I've said this before. If serious independents ran in every state for like U.S. Senate and Congress, I would think that we would wind up with a third in Congress. I do. I think that we would wind up with no clear party in charge. I wonder what would happen because, like, there are independents there now, and they caucus with either side. But what would happen if there were more independents than there were Republicans or Democrats? It's an interesting thing to play around with. I feel the legislators giving free housing, healthcare, cash, etc., is treason, helping people to violate the law. It should be punishable. I agree with that. I think that the whole sanctuary state thing, I don't know why nobody has challenged that in the Supreme Court. I mean, I don't recall there ever being a challenge that went to the Supreme Court where to say that violates the Constitution. So it'd be interesting if that happened. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen, and I want to ask if you guys remember this. Let's see this one. Okay, this.
They showed up in Charlottesville to protest.
Excuse me, they didn't let themselves stand with you, and you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name. George Washington was a slave owner. Was George Washington a slave owner? So will George Washington now lose his status? Are we going to take down, are we going to take down statues to George Washington? How about Thomas Jefferson? What do you think of Thomas Jefferson? You like him? Okay, good. Are we going to take down the statue? Because he was a major slave owner. Now we're going to take down his statue. So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history. You're changing culture. And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly. Now, in the other group also, you had some fine people, but you also had troublemakers, and you see them come with the black outfits and with the helmets and with the baseball bats. You had a lot of bad people in the other.
All right. So that was talking about Charlottesville. That was an unfortunate outcome where a young woman was killed by a man who ran her over with a car. There was a march by white nationalists. I think Proud Boys were part of it. They're alt-right groups, KKK, today's KKK, blah, 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 blah. We come to find out now that a group called the Southern Poverty Law Center, who was founded decades ago to fight bigotry and violence against Black people, has been taking in donations, private donations. And by the way, one of the top donors with over $1 million in donations, George Clooney. Taking in donations and then giving money to hate groups, including the groups that were present that in Charlottesville in President Trump's first term, where that statement, that very famous statement, there were fine people on both sides, drew the ire of the press and had him mocked. And Joe Biden said that it was that statement that made him run for president of the United States. So this group of who were founded to promote civil rights for all people and to end racism and bigotry was giving money to groups who would instigate violence. Why? To prove that they were needed still in a world, and we've said this on this station so many times, that racism, before 2016, people, racism was on was sliding down. There was a more harmonious feeling in the air until Obama kind of stoked the coals. I mean, there was so much so was racism down that America elected a Black president of the United States. But then towards the end of his administration, Obama was kind of stoking the coals of anger and kind of pushing people apart. And as that happened, this Southern Poverty Law Center was giving donations. They said they were paying informants, which makes no sense. But they were the ones who were giving money to these hate groups. And I just wonder if, like stacking the courts, like making Puerto Rico a state, like opening the border, was the SPLC playing a role in the Democrat cult to get power and hold on to power forevermore by creating problems that are not there, and giving people a reason to be fearful. The so-called leader of Hawaii chapter of Antifa was arrested 4 years ago for assault. They sent him back to Oregon last year for outstanding warrants. He was homeless here, by the way. That's interesting. Southern Poverty Law Center called Carlisle Light Infantry and others racist. When I joined, I had to sign a paper stating I would not discriminate on people of other races. It was bullshit. Oh, that's interesting. Thank you for that ad, Jeff. CC went back up with Obama. Yeah. So, but he was elected I mean, and not by a small margin. He was elected. And people are saying that racism, in America is at an all-time high. No. We elected a black president. Racism wasn't at an all-time high, but maybe it is now because the left, or the people who are supposed to be fighting racism, is actually stoking it so that they continue to make money. Obama was and is an instigator. Yeah, he is. He's the cult leader. Obama caused the hate and division. It's so crazy. So we voted to show that, we're not racist in America, but still somehow we're racist in America. And we're not, and we don't know. And now it's not black and white anymore, because more black people are starting to open their eyes and recognize that the Democrats are keeping them from having a full life. And so they're coming over to the Republican Party and to Trump because they're capitalists and they would like real opportunity. But anyway, I want to play you. I think that this is Todd Blasha. It's the acting FBI director. He says it really, really well. Watch.
Attorney General, how did they get away with this for so long?
I mean, it's a great question. I said today during the press conference that we know that this investigation was opened during the Biden administration and then mysteriously closed. I really don't have any information about why it was closed. And then we started again last year. The FBI did, working with the U.S. Attorney in Alabama. And it's extraordinarily egregious. You just talked about it. But imagine a donor to the SPLC if they were told, by the way, we're going to give the money you're giving us to the Ku Klux Klan. Okay, like in some cases over $1 million. I mean, it's incredible.
Now, they say they're no longer using these informants in this way, and that it was necessary because they had all sorts of threats against the organization, firebombing threats, and other acts of purported violence, and that's why they had to use these informants. And to that, you say?
Well, to that I say, for one, the indictment charges all the way through 2023. So I'm here to speak about what they're doing right now, but that indictment charges a long period of time through 2023. And second, and more importantly, there's no allegation or information in the indictment that suggests they shared that information with law enforcement. They have communicated.
They said they did.
Well, they have communicated when they so chose with law enforcement over the years. There's no information that we have that suggests that the money that they were paying to these informants and these members of these organizations, they then turned around and shared what they learned with law enforcement. To the contrary, or else we would have known from their own words that they had given this money to these guys, and we didn't know it.
What about Charlottesville and the Charlottesville Unite the Right rally? Were they involved in that?
Yes. So what we allege in the indictment and what the grand jury found is that one of the individuals that they paid was one of the folks who helped organize that terrible event. And so so imagine what we're talking about, Laura. We're talking about an organization that actively came out and just screamed it from the top of their lungs.
So just so people understand watching this, did these informants in some cases, given the evidence you've seen, actually initiate what would ultimately be these activities? And obviously Charlottesville ended with a tragedy.
Well, we know that they were part of those. They were part of it. Whether they were the leaders or the initiators, that'll come out, I think, eventually. But what we do know is that the very entities that this group was raising money to go against are the very entities that they were taking the money in and paying to these entities and these individuals associated with those groups.
I have no words. You know why I have no words? Not because I'm surprised, because we've been talking about this for years, that this was happening. But to think that Biden, and I'm sorry, I said that Blancha was the FBI. He's not. He's the acting attorney general, taking over for Pam Bondi. But when Biden's FBI got tipped off by the banks that there was something weird happening with the money for this organization, they immediately closed the investigation. And Biden said that it was Trump saying very fine people on both sides that made him run for office. That's when he decided he had to get back into the fray. So the dots are being connected all over the place. And we all knew that the Biden administration was just a shadow administration for Obama, or we presumed it. But now we're seeing it. Now we're seeing that the information is there. And you know what else we're seeing now with the Trump administration? He's taking no bullshit. He is not allowing detractors to infiltrate his organization. It's just not. I mean, today he fired the Secretary of the Navy, who happened to be Eric's, I think it was Eric or Donald Jr.'s good friend, recommendation or whatever. Well, he didn't like what he was being advised, and he got rid of him. Same thing with Bondi, another one. Bondi was, a Don Jr. ad. Trump is decisive now, whereas before he didn't understand Washington, and so he allowed the insiders to get the best of him. He's not going to make that mistake again. Let's see. Susan, all lies there fueled the racism card. Yeah, it's true. I mean, think about how diabolical you have to be to figure this shit out or to do this. Obama almost destroyed my military career and many others on active duty because he could not make a certain rank at 15 years. It was right when we were in Afghanistan and Iraq. While I knew the system and was able to move through loopholes, I went into operations of the 40th ID and worked directly for the division general and chief of staff. I got promoted to staff sergeant. Interesting. I always felt that Obama was selling America out. He was weakening our military. He was selling us out. And then we saw it in hyperdrive with Biden. It got accelerated. The only thing that Obama did was, deport people from the United States. He deported more people than any other president, but he kept trying to push Congress to adopt a different immigration law. And I think that different immigration law was very much like the one that Biden's administration was trying to push. And I read that bill that they said Donald Trump killed, and I hope it was Donald Trump that killed it, because it was the worst bill. It was, I don't remember, 700 pages. It was crazy, but I read it all. And as soon as a person came over and crossed the border, they would be given asylum, even if they didn't request asylum. And then their family could come over right away. And they would be given ID and a Social Security number. It was a crazy, crazy, crazy bill. And I am so glad that it never passed. You can come up with all the proof needed, but there are those that will downplay whatever is found. Well, that's true. But that's why now it's a different world, right? Because somebody like me, a virtual nobody, has a podcast where thousands of people listen to me, and we have the opportunity to elevate people who think like us, talk like us, and have this information, so that people do hear it. You see, I mean, it's not just the legacy media. Remember when we were kids, it was ABC, CBS, and NBC. But now there's so much opportunity for news and for journalism. And, that's one of the reasons that this show is called Let's Talk News, because we want to talk about how the stories are covered, not the court stories themselves. Sometimes I get a tip and I'm able to bring you, brand new information. But I like to dig deep into the news stories, because not every a journalist does. I believe being attacked so many times with fraudulent legal attacks, I believe made him wake up. Yeah, we're talking about Trump there. Obama did allow people from Afghanistan to come living village actors at Fort Polk for our training purposes. It was good for pre-employment training. Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen again, and we're going to just quickly go through what the Southern Poverty Law Center, who they donated to. So, I mean, they actually donated almost 3.5 million in 2024 and 1.6 million, let's say, in 2023. And guess what? Their donations went to Democrats: Kamala Harris, Act Blue, Jayapal. Let's see, who is the other one? Corey, the Democratic Party of Mississippi. This is open secrets, and this is, just shows how much money they moved along, and none to Republicans, none to conservatives, all to Democrats. So if you ever want to take a look here, I'll copy this and I'll put this into our chat here, because we're running short on time. But have a look at this place, because this group is just another shill for washing money, right? Act Blue. I guarantee you, other than George Clooney, you're going to see Neville Roy Singham or his wife, donating, or you'll see George Soros and those donating. There's no doubt in my mind that that's what's going to happen if you look deep enough. And unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of time today to dig very, very deep. But here's the resources if you have nothing to do and want to dig through their information. Counting Crazy Maisie, still no one can afford to run against her. That you know what? What if somebody just ran against her? Why do they have to be able to afford to run against her? What if somebody just did and put up a website with Wix or whatever and just started collecting money and see what happens? I mean, if the person can speak, and the person has, is in touch with the public, who knows what could happen? I mean, yes, money is important. Absolutely, money is important. But the guy that defeated Dan, oh God, the Texas Republican with the eye patch, I forget. He was a nobody. He was from the state assembly. He was an absolute nobody. It was a long shot, and he won. He won. So why don't you run? Why don't you find, it's Maisie, right? So it was a woman. If you could find a Chinese woman, or maybe a Polynesian woman, or even a Hawaiian woman, who has a good, solid Hawaiian name, who's willing, who can speak well, understands the issues like affordability and housing and family and things like that. Put her on the ballot. Doesn't take a lot. Put her on the ballot. Take her out. Or maybe even run it as a Democrat, even better. That might work. They are a leftist, socialist, communist organization, in my opinion. Santillion, that's what the Democrats are doing here in South Carolina. They're running as, Republicans, but they're really Democrats. I can't run against her. I'm in. Okay, gotcha. But I'm sure there's some woman, maybe a housewife, maybe a mother, maybe a librarian. Who knows? Put out all APB. One person can change the world. I mean, I never thought I'd wind up in politics, even though I loved it. I just didn't think I had the education or the smarts to be involved in it. And yeah, why not? Why not? If we all try, if we all do something can happen. You just never know. Nobody running against Tlaib either. Really? That what? Okay, this is crazy. So nobody's running against Rashida Tlaib. So the Republican Party in Michigan is dead. So now it's time for an independent to do it. And you could, the thing is, and this is something that most people don't know, you don't have to live in a district to, and I could tell you, Santillian, you don't have to live in the congressional district for which you're running. You just have to live in the state. You can, and you don't even have to move into the congressional district, because the presumption is that you're going to be serving in Washington. You need an office in the district, but you don't have to live there. So that's I do believe that if people ran on no party, that they might actually win. All right, we could talk more about this. Cameron, run against her. Run against her. We'll get you seed money. Run against her. Run against her as an independent. It's a thought. All right, think about it. I am going to not be here tomorrow, but I will be putting shorts up on YouTube and on Facebook. I will be back on Monday. I love you all, and I thank you so much for spending your evenings with me. I really enjoy it. I hope you do too. I will see you on Monday. Love you.